Why did you suddenly quit your job? That was $8,000 a month. What do you plan to do now? Just sit around and mooch off us?" Michael's voice echoed all the way to my yard. I stood frozen. Michael, the boy I used to see Pat pick up from school every day, was now yelling at his mother as if she were an enemy. I couldn't believe my ears. "I'm Robert, and I've lived in this neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, for 15 years. During that time, I've witnessed many family stories, but none have made me reflect as much as the story of Patricia Thompson, the woman who lived in the blue house next door. Pat, as we usually called her, was a gentle 58-year-old woman who always greeted me whenever she wanted to get her mail. She lived with her son, Michael, and daughter-in-law, Sarah, in the house she had bought with her life savings. I knew this because Pat once shared with my wife that she had worked like a bee to be able to buy the house for her son when he got married. But the real story began one Friday afternoon last March, while I was watering plants in my front yard. I heard shouting from Pat's house, something I had never heard in all those years. Pat had just lost her job as a housekeeper for a wealthy family, a job she had held for many years. From what I knew, she always sent almost her entire salary to her family, keeping only a little for her minimal personal expenses. I know Sarah is trying to get pregnant. I thought I'd come home early to help support Sarah during her pregnancy, help with postpartum recovery, even help take care of the baby. I heard Pat say in a gentle voice, trying to explain, but Sarah, the daughter-in-law, cut her off coldly. "Postpartum recovery requires professional care. You used to do housework. What would you know about that?" Then Barbara, Sarah's mother, an always arrogant university professor, added, "Caring for a newborn isn't just about changing diapers and feeding. It's a science. It requires real knowledge, not something an amateur can handle." Hearing this, I felt my blood boil. These two women were talking to Pat as if she were a servant, not their mother and mother-in-law. "All right, if everything is arranged, I won't interfere. I'll leave the baby care to you," Pat said, and I could sense the hurt in her voice. Barbara rolled her eyes as if that was the only sensible thing Pat had said all evening. "Good, but you'll pay for hiring a helper and a baby nurse. I'll handle the recruitment and coordination." That sentence made me stop what I was doing, my heart pounding. They not only refused Pat's help, but also demanded she pay for hiring someone else to do what she could have done for free. Michael quickly chimed in, "That's right, Mom. You should never have quit that job. Our expenses are about to double. You really should keep working." It was then I understood. They never wanted Pat to come home to rest. They just needed a steady paycheck deposited into the family account. To them, Pat wasn't a mother, but just a money-making machine. I heard Pat say in a tired voice, "Son, I'm 58 years old. I think it's time for me to rest and retire." "Retire?" Sarah burst out with a bitter laugh. "You don't even have a pension fund. How can you retire?" Those words stabbed me in the heart. I knew Pat had wanted to contribute to a pension fund years ago, but they themselves had told her to save that money to help pay off the mortgage on the house sooner. Now they were throwing it back in her face. Sarah tossed her hair back and said harshly, "That's because your income was pathetic. Who told you to buy a house you couldn't afford to pay off? You should have planned better." Michael, now trying to calm Sarah down, turned to yell at his mother, "Enough, Mom. Sarah is trying to get pregnant, but you're just stressing her out more. This is when we really need money, and you should be helping. You're still healthy. There's no reason you can't keep working for another 20 years. Save the retirement talk for when you're 80. 20 more years." Those words echoed in my head like a death knell. They wanted a 58-year-old woman to continue doing hard labor until she was 78 just to support their family. I looked through the window and saw Pat standing there, her eyes empty, as if her soul had just been sucked out of her body. After everything she had given, every sacrifice, every hour worked, every dollar earned, she was still just a money-making machine in their eyes. I said I'm going to retire. That's decided. No one has a right to make that decision for me. Pat finally spoke, her voice trembling but firm. Barbara, perhaps realizing Pat was serious and worried she might actually stop supporting them, quickly softened her tone. Listen, it's not that we don't understand. It's just that you have to be realistic. There are no spare rooms in the house for you. You can't expect to stay here forever, right? I almost dropped the hose. They were telling Pat she couldn't live in the house she herself had bought, the house she had poured her blood, sweat, and tears into earning. But I have a compromise, Barbara continued. I happen to know a wealthy family looking for a live-in assistant. Good salary, room, and board included. You've done that kind of work before, so the transition will be easy. Sarah jumped in with a smirk. Great idea. Actually, you could even help reduce our financial burden. Anything you earn can contribute to household expenses. It's a win-win, right? Barbara shrugged and added, You're not really someone who needs a rest anyway. Going back to work won't kill you. Don't be too quick to refuse. Try it out. If you do well, you might even get to stay long-term. Pat's face grew colder by the second. I've already quit my job. I will never work in anyone's house again. Barbara's smile vanished, her eyes turning sharp, calculating. Fine. If you really don't want to work for someone else anymore, that's okay. She paused, her voice suddenly becoming cold but full of pressure. There's a nursing home nearby. Good facilities, decent meals, and accommodation. You could apply to work there for your keep, maybe help in the kitchen, clean, something to earn your living. Sarah rolled her eyes and sneered. Now that makes more sense. You can't just live in a hotel and expect us to pay. At least in a nursing home, you'll be self-sufficient. Don't expect us to carry you anymore. Anger seethed in my chest, but I tried to remain calm as I heard Pat say, Do you really think it's acceptable to send your own mother to scrub floors in a nursing home just to support herself? Michael avoided eye contact but tried to maintain a semblance of reason. Mom, be realistic. You always said you wanted to be independent. Isn't this the most dignified way to do it? You support yourself, and we don't owe each other anything. Then, right in front of Pat, he started dialing a number on his phone. And besides, there's a vacancy right now. I called to check this morning. You can move in today. I couldn't believe my eyes. The son Pat had dedicated her life to raising was now eagerly pushing her out the door as if she were just a dead weight. Pat's hands trembled, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. Michael, my son, I gave you everything I had to raise you. I drained my savings to buy you this house. And now at this moment, all you see in me is a burden you can't wait to get rid of. Is this how you repay me? For a fleeting second, I saw a guilt flash across Michael's eyes, but it was quickly consumed by anger. He kicked Pat's suitcase, sending it crashing to the floor. You think you suffered? That was your choice. If you hadn't divorced Dad, we wouldn't have become poor. I could have grown up rich, but you ruined that. Let me tell you, Patricia, you owe me for life. I stood there in stunned silence, looking into his bloodshot eyes as a dull, relentless pain tore through my chest like a slowly twisting blunt knife. I couldn't stand by any longer. What I had just witnessed was beyond anyone's limit of tolerance. I want to go over there and say something, but Pat spoke first. If you're that cold-hearted, then so be it. From this moment on, we're done. You and I have nothing more to do with each other. Pat bent down, picked up her suitcase, and turned to leave, but Barbara suddenly grabbed her arm. What are you saying? Michael is your son. You have a responsibility for his future. You can't just pack up and leave like this. Sarah stepped in, echoing her mother's outrage. That's right. What kind of mother does that? You raised him, and now you want to wash your hands of him? It's unbelievably irresponsible. Pat laughed coldly. You're a university professor, an educated person, and this is the argument you come up with? Legally, parents are only obligated to care for their children until they are 18. As for me, I've supported Michael until he was 30. What more does he expect? Michael's face contorted, his voice rising in fury. That wasn't parenting. That was you making bad choices and trying to pay off your guilt. Every misery in my life is because of you. You owe me for life. Then he screamed, his voice dripping with venom. Did you ask my permission when you decided to bring me into this world? I almost laughed out loud at the sheer absurdity of it. He sounded completely unhinged. Pat looked at him as if he were a stranger, someone she no longer recognized. I must have been blind to raise someone like you. And if you have such deep and twisted philosophical questions, maybe you should ask your birth mother, the one who left you in a dumpster. Something in that statement made the air freeze. Michael stood still for a moment, confused, but the rage still clung to his face. Pat shook her hand free from Barbara's grasp and walked out the door without looking back. Almost immediately, I heard angry shouts from behind her. You're abandoning your own son. You're not even human. Don't be too proud, Patricia. When you're old and weak and no one wants to take care of you, let's see how far that independence gets you. Pat stopped, turned back slowly, and looked at them with a cold expression. You should worry more about yourselves. Don't forget the house you're living in. The house you consider your inheritance was bought with every penny I scraped together over the years. If I decide to take it back, don't be so sure you'll still have a place to live. I saw Sarah rush to the door, pointing her finger in Pat's face. Don't you dare touch this house. It's registered under my name and Michael's. It's ours by law. You have no rights whatsoever, Pat said in an unwavering voice. All right, then listen to this. I don't care if I have to spend the price of 2 houses. I will not let this house remain in the hands of a bunch of ungrateful freeloaders. Sarah laughed maniacally. You've lost your mind. 2 houses? You probably don't even have $1,000 to your name. This house is ours. It's our marital property. You're just some washed-up old woman trying to bite off more than she can chew. Get out. People like you deserve to rot on the streets. And with that, she slammed the door in Pat's face. The following week, everything changed completely. I didn't see Pat for a few days, and I started to worry until I received a call from my friend Alex, who worked at a high-end real estate project on the other side of town. Bob, you won't believe this, Alex said, his voice full of excitement. Today we had a client, a woman named Patricia Thompson. She just bought 2 villas, paid in full with cash. Over $3 million without batting an eye. My heart pounded. Pat Thompson from Maple Street. That's right. And you know what else? There was an employee there, Chloe Wilson, the niece of some professor, who tried to kick her out of the showroom, saying she was just a housekeeper and couldn't afford anything. I gritted my teeth. I knew Chloe. She was Barbara's niece, Sarah's cousin. A typical social climber. What happened next? Alex laughed. Patricia pulled out her phone, opened her banking app, and showed everyone a balance of over $8 million. The whole showroom went silent. Chloe looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. $8 million. I gasped. Now I understand where Pat got the courage to confront Michael and his family. But that's not all, Alex continued. Chloe still wouldn't give up. She kept insisting that the banking app on Patricia's phone must be fake, that there was no way she could have that much money. And then, Patricia calmly completed the purchase of the 2 villas, appointing Monica, a new employee, as her agent instead of Chloe. She said she wanted to work with real professionals. I couldn't help but smile, imagining Chloe's face at that moment. But Chloe still didn't back down. She started muttering malicious things about Patricia, saying she wasn't just an ordinary housekeeper, but a live-in assistant type for rich old men. If you know what I mean. My blood boiled. And how did Patricia react? That's when things got really interesting. Patricia calmly asked to see the manager, then said to Chloe, "Your brother also said that your list of successful clients doesn't come from your so-called skills, but from the nights you spend in bed with clients. Is that true?" I cheered. She didn't really say that. She did. Chloe panicked, started crying. The manager fired her on the spot, but Patricia wasn't done. She called the police and reported defamation and public harassment. The police arrived within 10 minutes, Alex continued. After hearing the account and reviewing the incident, they issued a formal warning to Chloe and made it clear that if she didn't apologize publicly, Patricia had every right to sue. Chloe finally had to mumble an apology before storming off with an angry face. I felt a strange sense of joy hearing this. After everything Pat had endured, she could finally stand up for herself. That night, my home phone rang. It was Pat. "Robert, I'm sorry for calling so late, but I needed someone to talk to." Her voice sounded tired, but more relieved than I had heard in years. "Pat, you don't need to apologize for anything. I heard about what happened at the showroom. I'm very proud of you. Michael just called," she said. "He was furious about Chloe losing her job, blaming me for causing trouble. But then his tone changed when he asked about my new boss." I chuckled softly. "He smelled money, didn't he?" "Exactly. But I told him we were done permanently. Then I blocked all his numbers, Sarah's, and their whole families." A few weeks later, I witnessed a scene I would never forget. I was coming home from work when I saw Michael kneeling on the sidewalk in front of the gate of the luxury villa complex where Pat was living. He was crying like a child. "Mom, please don't be mad at me anymore. Come home. I was wrong. Mom, no matter what, I'm still your son. How can you be so cold to me?" The sight filled me with more disgust than pity. This wasn't real remorse. It was a hypocritical charade staged to regain access to money. Pat had hired a private driver, and every day she sat in the back seat with the windows closed, gliding past the main gate straight into her villa's garage without once glancing at Michael. After 2 weeks, Michael finally gave up, or so I thought. Then things escalated in a way I never could have imagined. One afternoon, while I was cleaning in my garage, I heard the TV from my neighbor's house. Sarah and Michael were still living in the house Pat had bought. I heard Michael's voice, but it sounded strange. Curious, I looked through the window and saw them watching a live stream on a large computer screen. On the screen, Michael was sitting in front of the camera, his eyes red, his face tear-streaked. My mother never really loved me. I tried so hard, studied diligently, but she didn't even support me in the smallest things. The year I went to college, she left for another city to be a live-in assistant for rich people, leaving me to live alone in a tiny rented apartment. I stood there, stunned. Michael was live streaming, telling a completely fabricated story about Pat. When I got married, she didn't contribute a single penny. Even when my wife was pregnant, she didn't help at all. Now that she's suddenly rich, she's cut me off completely as if I never existed. The comment section exploded with sympathy and criticism for Pat. I felt so angry that I wanted to smash the window. But then a week later, everything changed completely. Pat retaliated spectacularly. I was watching the local news when I saw a story that almost made me drop my coffee cup. Local woman rebuts son on social media, reveals shocking truth about adoption. They were playing a clip from Pat's live stream. She sat calmly before the camera, her voice even but firm. "I want to clarify a few things," Pat said. Michael is not my biological son. I adopted him from an orphanage when he was 1 year old. He was abandoned in a dumpster, suffering from a severe congenital heart defect. I divorced my husband to raise Michael because my husband refused to continue raising someone else's child. On the screen, she displayed documents, hospital bills, tuition fees, and adoption papers. I worked 3 shifts a day to pay for his medical treatment. I bought him a house when he got married, and in return, he kicked me out of that very house and is now slandering me online. The comment section exploded, but this time with a completely different tone. Oh my God, $8 million. Karma finally rewards a good heart. This isn't coldness, this is sanity. But what shocked me most was when Pat played an audio recording. Michael tried to arrange for Pat to become a live-in assistant for an old man. The recording had been captured by the man's family security camera. The comments erupted again. Unbelievable. This isn't just freeloading. This is financial abuse. Cutting him off isn't cruel, it's survival. This is guilt-tripping weaponized. But then Michael retaliated in the worst way possible. So what if I'm not your biological son? You didn't have to save me. I never asked you to. Maybe if you hadn't taken me in, I would have been adopted by a real family. You ruined my life. You should never have interfered with my destiny. That was the last straw. The internet exploded. Is he insane? She saved his life. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Let the whole world see this monster's true FACD. Within a day, public opinion completely turned against Michael. His streaming account was permanently suspended. Pat's lawyers filed a formal lawsuit for defamation and harassment. Ultimately, the court ruled in Pat's favor. Michael was found guilty of violating cyber safety laws and defamation, and was ordered to pay damages and all legal fees. Sarah filed for divorce that week, and 6 months later, Pat regained possession of the house that once belonged to her through a meticulous legal process. The story ended one autumn afternoon. I was sweeping leaves in my yard when I saw a moving truck leaving Pat's old house. Sarah had moved out with her young daughter, and Michael, no one knew where Michael was. A few days later, Pat moved back in. She had completely renovated the house, repainted it, planted new roses, and even bought a grand piano for the living room. "Hello, Robert," she said as I walked by. "It's good to be home." I smiled. "Welcome home, Pat." That evening, I heard the sound of a piano from her house. Moonlight Sonata played beautifully. It was the music of peace, of a woman who had finally found herself. A few years later, I heard Michael had fled to Canada. Some said he was still online, boasting about his free and easy life there. But the images I saw were different. A haggard man, eating stale bread by a dumpster, his eyes empty, sometimes laughing insanely, sometimes crying uncontrollably. He had lost his mind. As for Pat, she was living the life she deserved. I often saw her in her garden, tending to her roses, or sitting by the small pond she had built in her backyard, reading a book and enjoying her coffee. After witnessing this entire story, I've reflected a lot on the lessons it offers. This isn't just a story about a mother and son, but about fundamental life principles that we should all learn. Lesson 1. Kindness should not come at the cost of self-destruction. Pat spent 30 years sacrificing everything for Michael, but when she needed respect and love, she only received contempt. This teaches us that giving must have boundaries. We can love and support others, but we should never let it turn us into money-making machines or emotional slaves. Lesson 2. Learn to recognize and escape toxic relationships. Michael, Sarah, and Barbara created a sophisticated system of abuse. They made Pat feel guilty whenever she wanted to rest or take care of herself. This is a clear sign of manipulation and gaslighting. When someone constantly makes you feel selfish for wanting to take care of yourself, it's time to step out of that relationship. Lesson 3. It's never too late to stand up for yourself. At 58, Pat might have felt it was too late to change her life, but she proved that it's never too late to reclaim your dignity and happiness. Whatever your age, you still deserve respect and love. Lesson 4. Family isn't always about blood. This story shows that true family isn't about DNA, but about love, respect, and mutual care. Pat loved Michael as her own son, but he didn't see her as a real mother. Meanwhile, people like me, a neighbor, cared more about her. Lesson 5. The truth will always prevail. Michael tried to slander Pat on social media with lies, but eventually, the truth was exposed. This reminds us that we shouldn't try to live a life of deceit, because the truth will always find a way to come out. Pat's story has changed the way I view relationships in life. It reminds me that we need to care for those around us, especially those who might be suffering in silence. If you're watching this video and feel a connection with Pat, or even recognize yourself in a similar situation, please remember, you deserve respect. You deserve love, and it's never too late to change. I want to hear your stories. Please share in the comment below. Have you ever experienced a similar situation? What have you learned from difficult relationships in your life? Don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other meaningful stories. Hit the notification bell to be updated on the latest videos. And remember, life is too short to spend on people who don't appreciate you. Live for yourself because you deserve it. Thank you for listening to this story. See you in the next video.